What's going on, Betch fans? I'm excited for this one. Get one of my favorite people back on the show. Talk a little bit about the basketball roster. Are we good now? Does this feel like a successful offseason? Are we judging this through some of a bias that we potentially have with Greg Gard? Let's talk about that on today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Welcome to a Badger community that's all about making it better to be a Badger fan every day. That's what this show is all about. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm your host, Ryan Herring. Today's episode brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it. I talked about it. I have a bit of a competitive side. Monopoly Go loves that competitive side of me. Right now, go download Monopoly Go free on the App Store or Google Play. And let's get Rajiv back on the show. We haven't had Rajiv on in a minute, man. And I feel like this potentially might be a good moment to play.
Winning a national title? Absolutely. Going on Final Four runs? Why not? It's Believe with Rajiv on today's Locked On Badgers.
Got to believe, my friend. Got to always believe.
So 3 transfer pickups. John Tonje has been officially announced, but there is so much smoke there. Unless something happens, you have 3 transfer pickups. I talked about this on yesterday's show a little bit. Rajiv, where are you at?
Man, I'm happy. I'm happy because we needed to make the additions and we made them. I said priority to me was a 4, a 3, and then a 1. We got ourselves a 1, a 3, and a 4. And I think number one impression, athleticism continues to get better, right? Like we're seeing more athleticism. And when you look at Amos, my goodness, that guy is super athletic. Now I know you're going to lose a lot in Tyler Wall, no doubt. But I mean, you're replacing him with a guy who really brings a totally different level of athleticism and the ability to shoot. All 3 of these guys, they're more athletic. They can space the floor. They can all shoot. That, to me, is the number one thing that you're adding right there is the ability to provide more offensive weapons, and these guys can create their shot. If we look at a guy like Hunter and Amos, they all got tons of film on creating their shot, and Tonje as well. I just think that you're stepping it up a little bit. Is it the big names from the big schools we wanted? Maybe not, but it's all about how they're going to gel with this team and improve us. And that's the thing I'm looking after. Are we better than we were before? Hard to say, but we filled needs that absolutely were critical for us. So you got to give Gard some credit for that.
I feel like there's a timing thing here too, right? If Xavier Amos was like priority number 1 and he came on the first visit and you'd never heard of Brandon Angel, like I feel like Badgers fans like, oh, I really like this guy. But now it feels like a second option to Brandon. It was, but it doesn't mean it's a bad option. And I think he actually fits the offense a little bit better. I think there's a chance, and I've said this before, that next year's team might not have the star power, but could fit together a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And I think you're right about Amos and like the names that were on the board first, right? Because that's what people were looking at. Like, which one we were going to get? Oh, we didn't get this guy. We didn't get this guy. I get it. And losing a guy like Chucky is a big deal, and that stinks for us. But ultimately, if you just look at the roster as it sits right now, you got to feel pretty comfortable with how we're looking next year just because we've got the needs filled. We've got a lot of players who are going to take steps. We've got Freetag coming in. We've got Robeson. We've got people to kind of fill this team out. And what were the issues last year, right? So shooting was certainly an issue last year. Defense was a major issue. That's always difficult to see on highlight tapes. And you got to really watch more to get a sense of how good of defenders these guys are. But if you look at a guy like Amos and the blocks that he had, and even Tonje, I mean, I feel like you're gonna add, like we talked about rim protection a lot last year. And I'm not saying Amos is gonna come in and be a world beater at rim protection, but at least he can have it, right? I mean, he's gonna provide something on the inside that can help us out defensively as well. So yeah, I mean, I really think like that, like last year, we said athletic wing, right? Well, he went out and got an athletic wing. And I think once again, he's doing things that are targeted. Is it exactly who we wanted? Maybe, maybe not, but maybe it's who they wanted. Maybe it's the kind of player that they were looking after. So ultimately that's what matters. And we filled the needs that were required. And we're trending up continuously with athleticism, which is a big problem here for the last couple of years. So I'm always looking for athleticism. I always look for guys who can create their own shot, so we don't get into scoring droughts and we don't get into issues like we've had in the past. Now, our offense was better last year with a guy like Storr, and I don't think that's going to really take a big dip downward when you look at this roster that's being developed right now.
Yeah, you hit on something I thought that was interesting too. A lot of people assume the offense is going to take a big step back. I think to your point, you got 3 guys here who can create their shots. And in some ways, you might have more shot creation on this roster. The secondary rim protection, I think, is a big one. Amos has double the block rate when you just look at per 40 minutes of Tyler Wall. Now, I think you lose some toughness and some defensive versatility with Wall. I don't think Amos brings that, but he does give you shot protection against the rim. And that was a big issue last year. I also want to give – I think Greg Gard deserves credit because the Hepburn thing happened kind of quickly, and it wasn't something that was planned for. We pivoted pretty well. All these guards – here's the other thing I like about all 3 of these players. They all provide a physical presence. Tonje is a yoked-up 6'5", 6'6". Hunter's 6'3". You mentioned Amos and his verticality, his explosiveness. They all bring physicality, which I think at times last year we got pushed around a little too much.
100% agree. And that's a really good point too. And it's just like we've got to look at how we can adapt now. Right. So, I mean, it's not just the other thing I want to mention here is NIL too. Like there's so much that goes into this. And when you lose a guy like Chuck, you mentioned Chuck, it's like, there's only so much you can do to keep a guy like that. And so you've got to, there's a lot of people on Twitter saying, look what schools these guys are coming from. NIU, CSU, they're not big schools. That's okay. If they fit in the roster, it's okay. And sure, the jury's still out, right? We're going to see what it looks like in November and how it actually plays out. But I mean, I feel good about the fact that, 10 days ago, I was freaked out. I'm like, what are we going to do? How are we going to fill this roster? And, then you look at the players that are coming in, you're like, well, I mean, are we improved? I mean, it's hard to say. What would you say to do you feel like we're better than we were last year or worse just on roster construction? I mean, I kind of feel like we're sort of in the middle, like we're kind of close based on who we brought in and at least the potential. I'm not saying we're going to be better, but I don't feel like we're going to be going from, fifth in the Big Ten or fourth, wherever we finished to, 10th. I don't see that happening. I feel like we're okay. We're going to maintain where we were and hopefully get a little better with other guys taking steps.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I said it on the show yesterday. Maybe I was a little hyped up, but I said, I think this could be a 5 or 6 place finish in the Big Ten next year, which isn't that far off when you factor in the new teams coming in from where we were last year. I would say this, based on the 3 transfers coming in and the 3 guys you lost, I'm counting Wall, if there wasn't a transfer. Mm-hmm. I don't think we got better in that exchange. But we're going to talk about some of the younger guys on the roster coming up as well and why that's also part of this equation. Those young guys, those Winters, the Freetags, the Blackwells, they don't stay static. So if you brought 3 guys in the portal that kind of equal out the 3 guys you potentially lost, I'm not saying that's true. I think that's very much TBD. But you're going to get gains in other areas. The roster doesn't stay static. But I do want to, before we get there, I do want to quickly ask you, and yeah, I think this is a good place to get into this, actually. I was going to go through the roster, but I feel like we are all viewing this through the bias that we all individually have with Greg Gard, right? I talk to people who are very down on Greg Gard, and that's a fair perspective, and they're kind of like, these guys are not the replacements. You lost Wall. You're not going to replace him with a guy from Northern Illinois. But I feel like I'm much more optimistic, but I think that comes back to the fact that I've been more optimistic with Greg Gard in general. I'm going to kick this one to you to start with. Are you viewing this through kind of your lens of Greg Gard and maybe a bias that we have there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good way to look at it. And it's tough to have that discussion because obviously, me, I'm of the opinion that I think Greg Gard deserves another shot at this. I do think massive improvements need to be made. And one of the things we've talked about is roster construction, right? So how that's looked and what he's done and what he hasn't done over the years. And I think, if you are off Greg Gard, right? Like certainly our good friend Justin is certainly a guy who's off Greg Gard and, he's looking at this differently. I think that it's fair to look at that from the perspective of that. And I think I am biased because I want him to succeed because I still believe that he can. I don't necessarily believe that he needs to go because for me, it's always based on requirements. Like I want him to stay, but he needs to do certain things in order for me to still believe in him. And that's certainly, production in the tournament, but it's also roster construction and making sure that you can compete in this age of NIL and recruitment and constant recruitment, 1-year recruitments all the time. So I do think that I'm looking at from that bias, and I think it's fair. But I think even if you look at it just objectively and you try to eliminate that, and you just look at the perspective of, okay, like these are the players that were lost, these are the players that are necessary. in years past, we've been very critical of the type of player that he brought in and the type of player that he didn't bring in. And now I feel like there has been an upgrade in the sense of like, he's clearly targeting certain types of players, whether it's through data, whether it's through style of play, everything. And he recognizes that there has been an issue. When you look at the past, like let's say 5 years, and you look at all those issues that he's had with scoring, right? Like tons of scoring droughts. Clearly that was it. That was something that he fixed last year with AJ Storr. And again, he's fixing it this year. So I feel like even if you try to look at it as objectively as you can, I find it hard to not be happy with what he's done. If I try to put myself in the shoes of someone like a Justin, who at very fair point, very fair, thought process of, I don't really think he's the guy to take us to the next level. Even then, even from that perspective, how can you really blame him in the sense that it's not his fault Chucky left for however much money he got. It's not his fault that AJ Storr has spent 7 years going to 7 different schools. Like I feel like he's done what he can so far. Now there's a whole nother side of him that's in-game coaching and adjustments and that kind of stuff. But from a roster construction standpoint, not even recruiting, just transfer portal, looking at that itself, I think it's hard to really make a case that he's not doing what he needed to do in this offseason, even from the perspective of a guy that wants him gone. If that's not my perspective, but even if you look at it from that lens, I feel like, what can you really say? Like, he got the positions that were necessary. Was it what everybody wanted? Well, we don't really know what they wanted and what their board looked like. And maybe these guys were higher up than we ever thought.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I don't even have a lot to add on to that. I think ultimately you want a coach who has answers when things come up. And Greg Gard had answers this offseason. 2 of these guys are portal 4-star guys, no matter how much stock you put into that or not. These are guys that other schools were after. They had contact with other pretty big schools. I think he had answers. Right now, will those be the right answers? Well, the season's going to show you one way or the other. But he found some right answers in last year's portal. So ultimately, I don't have a lot to add on to what you said. I think we all have biases, and to ignore that is silly. And I realize that I'm probably being too optimistic because of my bias towards not thinking that it's time to move on from Greg Gard. But objectively, to your point, I think he did really well with these 3 guys. And the offseason's not over yet. All right, we're going to take a quick break there, come back. We're going to go through the roster a little bit. Are we good in the backcourt? Are we good in the front court? Are we good at center? And talk a little bit about internal development of young guys as well. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers with Rajiv. But first, a quick break for friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel remains the #1 source for all your sports betting needs. I've talked about it a lot. This is the place I go to when I want to put some money. I bet with my heart. Rajiv and I go back and forth with this a little bit, but I bet with my heart, which means I often lose money. But there's no better way to do that than on FanDuel, where it's simple, it's fast, it's easy. Spreads, parlays, futures, teasers, whatever your flavor is, go over to FanDuel.com. Right now, it is a great time to get started. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com, the #1 source for all your sports betting needs. Please do it responsibly, but FanDuel is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Network. All right, let's bring Rajiv back in here. Rajiv, as always, man, where can people find what you got going on and what you and Justin are doing?
Yeah, so at the Bucky Report on Twitter, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm at Rajiv Badgers on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it these days. But yeah, we appreciate it. We've had a lot of good support for the Bucky Report, and you can always find us on here as well, especially during in season. We're always going to be part of the reaction shows and all that stuff. So yeah, it's great.
All right, let's get into rosters. We'll take turns on this. I'll let you start on the backcourt. So we're just lumped together, shooting guard, point guard. Do you feel like we're good in the backcourt now?
I do think we're good in the backcourt. And I think a lot of that has to do with Freitag and the potential that he brings, no doubt. And we know how motivated he is to really succeed here. But I mean, really, that was the more comfortable area leaving the year. And even when you lose a guy like Chucky, now, do I think that Hunter is going to be a great replacement for Chucky? Remains to be seen. I think we did lose a little bit there. But Freitag and Hunter can kind of make up for that Chucky loss. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. But with Klesmit and obviously Blackwell has just continued to thrive, and I feel like he's going to take big steps. And McGee backing him up. So I feel like we've got a really good situation with the 1s and 2s right there. I'm really comfortable with the fact that you've got guys like most likely Klesmit and Hunter probably starting. And then of course, Freitag and how he'll come in there, and McGee, Blackwell. I think you've got a really good group there. You've got offensive production. You've got good defenders in that group as well. So yeah, I think where we are in the backcourt, I'm very happy. I don't think we need anything else in that department.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to say something a little probably unpopular. I am starting to think, because of who Chucky was to the team, because of the heart, because of 3 years in Madison because of the shot against Purdue, because of a Bucky tattoo. I'm starting to think the on-court impact is maybe very slightly getting overrated a little bit. This is not – I like Chucky a lot. Make no mistake. This is still a player who struggled pretty mightily defensively, had major scoring issues at times. He's a very good old-school point guard. This is not a first-team, like, all-conference player we're replacing. And I feel like the mythos has grown a little bit. Like, oh, you lost Chucky Howard. There were issues with Chucky last year. We talked about it on the show. This is not hyperbole. He's a loss. I think they went and found a 6'3" guard who averaged 16 points per game at a lower level. Completely fair. I don't know if it's as – I think we're fine in backcourt, I guess, is my roundabout way of agreeing with you.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I see your point there, and I think that's fair, and that they're I mean, you're obviously right. You can look back and think that the aura of Chucky was bigger than maybe, it was, or we think it is. But I think that the lower level thing is a really big key to that. Chucky has been effective at the Big Ten level. He's been able to guard some of the best other guards. He's been able to really turn on the defensive jets late in games to create big steals, to make big shots. And Hunter's film looks really good, and I like that, but doing it that level is different. One thing I worry about with Hunter is turnovers. Like, he's a little bit loose with the handle, and I feel like that's something that Chucky, I think, was really good at. So it's really hard to project and what it automatically turns to when you're at a Central Arkansas versus coming to Madison and playing against a new Big Ten with new look teams, right? Like Oregon's coming in, they're really good. UCLA's always a good program. So I think I see your point, but I still think like it's a net loss in that department for me still. I definitely wouldn't think of it as even a net even.
Yep, that's fair. And listen, Chucky did a lot of little things on the court too. And he was, durability was also a factor. He played a lot of basketball. Like, this is not me trying to knock Chucky. It's a very good point. Let's go forward. So the 3 and the 4, I'll start this off. I find these positions a tiny bit wanting. And my biggest concern here is Tonje is 6'5", 6'6". I think Amos is about 210. Wall Lesser played 220, 225. We got pushed around a little bit last year. I feel like there's a chance against bigger front courts in the Big Ten. I wish we had another guy who's a little bigger, a little thicker we could throw out there to add into the rotation, because I don't think Gilver's that guy. So I'm okay with it. I wish we had another body here.
I agree with you completely. I am okay with it because we got Amos, and I think that provides a little rim protection. Although you're right, he's 6'8". He's only 6'8". I wish he was a little bit taller. And that can be an issue with, and we saw last year, how many big front courts did we face up against that just flat dominated, right? And our fives didn't change much. So I feel like I'm really more concerned with the 3 really concerns me, and whether Blackwell can kind of slide over and play a little of that too. Like Tonje, we'll see, right? We'll see. It's hard to see. And he played at Colorado State, a decent sized school, and his film looks good. I'm a little concerned defensively at the 3, and we had an issue last year with Store there. I mean, Wall is an undervalued guy. He is great. And even now I'm talking about Amos's athleticism and how great that is. But Wall did so much. Like, his creativity around the rim, he was very dependable scorer. He got tons of rebounds. Like, I think we are going to miss a little bit there of some of those hustle plays. We're going to increase athleticism and increase scoring ability, but we're losing that hustle and some of those key plays around the basket, some of those things that don't even show up on the stat sheet, just those hustle plays that Wall really did. And the game sort of intellect and knowledge that Wall brought. I'm not saying these guys don't have it. I just don't know because we haven't seen them. But Wall really had that. And I think he's one of my favorite players that we've had. I really love him. And I think that we are going to lose something there. Am I okay with the forward position? Yes. Do I wish, like you, that we had, I would, for me, it would be another 3, kind of maybe like a little combo forward, someone who can really be a little versatile. Yeah, I do wish we had that. And maybe we do bring in another one, but I'm okay with where we are. I don't feel nearly as comfortable about the forwards as I do about the guards.
Yeah, same right there with you. Let's move over to center. I'll let you take that one. Really, nothing's changed, but do you think maybe your development with the Winter, Crowell?
Yeah, look, you know how I feel about Nolan Winter. I think he's going to be great, and I think he does need to develop. I just don't really think you're going to get a bunch of like size increase from Crowell. Like, I think Winter's really where the gains have to come. We know who Crowell is now, and he's going to be effective, and hopefully he's going to continue to get a little better. But Winter's really, it's relying on a step from Winter, which I expect to be there. But we talked a lot about rim protection, and while Amos gives something, it's not really what I was hoping for. I wanted like an Omar Ballo kind of a guy, or someone that's like, one of these like 6'11", 7-foot guys who are just beefy, who are just going to do everything to control that paint. And we don't really have that. I'm fine with it because I hope Winter takes a step, but it is a concern coming into this offseason. You and I both were like, look, we need 5. We need more 5s. Clearly, Greg Gard is good with those two. And I mean, look, I think that Crowell is better than people think he is. You and I kind of agree on this. But defensively is where the issue becomes with the 5. And so, again, am I okay with it? Yes. Do I wish we would have got an Omar Ballo type of guy? Absolutely. If Winter takes the step that I'm hoping physically and mentally, then I think we could be really good.
Yeah, I think this is one of the spots that you can look at and say, I think this is pretty easily going to be better next year. Because I also think Winter's going to grow up, just quite frankly. Not from the off-court maturity standpoint, just physically, like grow up. And you looked at what he did last year, free throw rate, very similar to Crowell. Stuff like that shows that he was battling, but he just physically wasn't quite ready. I think if he takes that step that a lot of us expect him to, very highly regarded prep prospect, then there is your backup 5. And he's also a guy who can slide over to play some 4 in certain matchups. He's instrumental, but you look at what we had last year, you had Crowell and then a freshman, Nolan Winter, backing him up. Now you're going to have Crowell and a sophomore, Nolan Winter, backing him up. I think that's going to be a huge difference. I think not everybody takes big jumps, right? You and I were talking about this offline. Some players just kind of plateau, like a Brad Davis gets here. He's kind of who he is, and that's who he is for 4 years. Winter is the other side of that coin. He's the guy who physically is going to add 20 pounds and potentially take a big jump. And if that's the case, man, I think you're more than fine with Crowell and Winter backing him up. I really think you're totally good there. It's dependent on Winter taking a step, and it's dependent on it. You believe he will do that or not. I tend to believe he will. I know you probably do as well. Others may be more pessimistic there, but I think you're fine at the 5 because I think Winter's going to take that step.
I will say this, like, how much better would we feel right now if Gus was still on the roster, just because of like that potential 5 that he was going to be and the potential just like post presence. Like, that's one thing I want to talk about with the forwards a little bit too. I'm sorry, I'm tracking a little bit, is post play. Like that's one thing that I didn't really see much of anything. And maybe you have on Amos's film. I didn't really see much post presence there. I mean, he's a shooter, but I mean, as far as the ability to score in the post, we've got Crowell who can do it, and he has issues with it here and there. He's not tough enough sometimes. I'm a little worried about that. I don't look at this roster, and Wall was that guy who could score in the post. I don't know where we are with post scoring. I think sometimes you need that, especially if the ball's not going in. You need to be able to have that threat down there. That's something that I meant to mention with the forwards that does concern me a little bit.
Yeah, so that's not going to be Amos's game. He's more of a stretched athletic guy. Watching some of the film on him, that's not where he's going to excel. I will say this. That is a spot Hunter statistically plays pretty well at. He's a pretty physical guard. We know, I mean, we're not running the friggin' swing guys, but we do know Greg Gard does like to post a physical guard. That's a spot Hunter could excel in. Statistically, he's in the upper 80, 70 to 80 percentile in post play as a guard. So he's somebody who's going to get mismatches down there. Tonje at 6'5", 6'6", but really thick. He also has pretty good analytics in the post. So you might see a situation where you're really spacing with Amos, Winter, Crowell, and posting with Tonje and Hunter. And I think you can see some of that. I think Blackwell's a guy who's going to succeed down there as well. So I think we can get post touches. It just might be more of our old school, like inverting the offense, posting the guards, and spacing with the bigs. That's a good point, though. We're going to take a quick break here. I want to come back and talk about some internal development, finish off with the discussion with that. And I think it's one of the elements that we don't talk about a lot. We talk about we lost these guys, we brought these guys in, but you're also bringing in free tag. You're expecting jumps from Blackwell and Winter. I think that's an important component of this team. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers with Rashid. But first, a quick break for our friends over at Monopoly Go. So we all been there. We've all played the timeless game. We've all lost money because of some silly roll, and you end up on Park Place or luxury tax, and then you cheer when you pass go. You get that bank money. Well, Monopoly Go is the mobile twist, the new twist on the classic, beloved board game. Play against your friends, build up against the leaderboards. Community chest, it's all there, but you can play across a bunch of different boards. You can wreck their vaults. It is incredibly fun. It's addictive. It's awesome. And there's a reason over 150 million people have downloaded Monopoly Go. Download Monopoly Go for free at the App Store on Google Play. Embrace your competitive side with Monopoly Go. Let's get Rajiv in here. Which of these 3 players do you think are going to have the biggest impact next year on the team? Daniel Freitag, or no, let me rephrase that. Which of these 3 do you think are going to have the biggest jump? Daniel Freitag from high school to college, Blackwell or Nolan Winter from freshman to sophomore?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Oh man. Well, I'm gonna go with Blackwell just because of the what he saw, what he did last year. And I feel like he had so much confidence and he played, and that's everything in sports and how he played and how aggressive he played. I do. Ooh, that's tough. I almost want to say Winter just because he has the most upside, I think, to gain. And Blackwell developed so much his freshman year, but I think Blackwell is really going to take a step of leadership and more aggressiveness, better defensively, and also just more legs. Like he, playing a full college season, as we saw with Connor's first year, can take a lot out of you. And I think you saw that a little bit with Blackwell at the end. So obviously just that conditioning and being able to play a full year, I think we will get that step from him because he just seems like a guy that has that like star potential, like real true star potential. So I'm going to say Blackwell, but I expect a big jump from Winter as well.
I'm going to flip it to Winter. I almost wonder if Blackwell has a little bit of the Brad Davidson disease where he kind of came in physically ready and mature. And it kind of is who he is to some degree. I think there's a step there. Make no mistake. I definitely think there's a step there with his ball handling. He needs to get a little more consistent, a little tighter with it. It was kind of catch and shoot. If it's not there, drive. And if it's not there, he was kind of stuck. So I think there's development there. But he doesn't have the upside, I think, that a Winter has or that he has. So I'm going to say Winter. But that does tie into the next point is – you brought in these 3 transfers, but I think a big part of this team next year is the growth of those, or the incoming arrival of those 3 players. And if that's the case, I don't know if you need to 1-for-1 replace the transfer guys with new transfer guys, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and then the big sort of unknown factor here is how good Freitag really will be. Like we certainly have our expectations about that, but we also had expectations last year. Blackwell exceeded those expectations. If Freitag exceeds the expectations that we had for Blackwell, think about that. Think about how great that could be. And everything that we've seen from him on film, like Freitag looks like he's going to be the guy. So yeah, I think that's a real huge part of it. It's what are those guys going to do? And there's other guys that can take leaps too. I mean, there's nothing to say that Steven Crowell is not going to beef up a little bit and make a jump, even though he's probably where he's at. And a lot of these bench guys that, like let's take a Marcus Ilver, for example. And there were times where we wanted him to play certainly more backing up, but he's a guy that we know has those raw tools that we thought really could develop. And who's to say that he doesn't come in and say, you know what, this is going to be my year to take a big leap. We've seen over the years guys that come out of nowhere and just surprise us and take over and have huge jumps. And I feel like you could have some bench guys too. So while we're talking about, Winter and Freitag and Blackwell, I think you also have guys like Ilver that can really make a jump and make a play at getting those minutes. I mean, there's going to be backup 4 minutes, whether it's Carter Gilmore, whether it's Ilver, one of those guys is going to take them. And I would like to see personally Ilver to really take a jump and get more physical and be able to be a little more versatile on the court. So yeah, I think there's always jumps with people, and it's really going to be who can have the biggest one, who can spend the most time in the offseason. Listen, Nolan Winter, go work with Brady Collins, please. Go find that guy and get that size because he needs it. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be gained with the guys currently on the roster. Then you add in this new set of players, and it's like a whole new team, really. I mean, it's like everything's going to look so different than it did last year.
It's kind of exciting, right?
Yeah, always. And this is when you have hope, right? Like this is me, believe through G, right? It's like I got hope now because I've got a 1, a 3, and a 4. I'm like, okay, hey, we could do anything next year. All I want to see is progress. I've said that every year. Let me see progress. Let's see development. Let's see like small gains that turn into future growth of the program. And that's a little iffy right now when you look at the basketball program. You look at football and we're talking constantly about growth. Basketball needs that year where we see some real progress to be able to believe that there is sort of a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, a couple things I want to just finish on quick, and I've already kept it for almost 30 minutes. I don't think this was a home run off season. I think people are going to listen to this show and think that I'm saying, like Greg Gard knocked this incredibly out of the park. I think I would have preferred a little more beef in the interior. Camren Hunter has injury concerns. He missed last year with a broken foot. I don't think this is a home run, but I think it's like a B. I think it's like a B off season so far, and it's still not done.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. He did what was required of him. Hitting a home run is exceeding our expectations. He did not exceed my expectations in the offseason. He did what was needed based on who he lost. I mean, we lost 7 players. We got in 3. Okay. We replaced the production. We did replace points. We talked a lot about point production that was lost. He did that. I agree. Not a home run. I would say B minus as well. I mean, in that area, it's hard to really grade it without seeing the guys play and how they're gonna fold in. But yeah, he did the minimum. He did what he was required to do, and he's now constructed a roster that I feel like, okay, if we go into next season with these guys on our team, we'll see what happens. Maybe we're a 5th or 6th place team. Maybe we're a 6th seed in the tournament. Maybe we have to make it. Obviously, we have to be a tournament team for him to keep his job, in my opinion. And I think that, based on what I've seen him construct, I don't see any reason to think that we're not going to be a tournament team. I would be shocked if we're not a tournament team.
Yeah, I think we're a tournament team too. I do want to point out we lost between the big 3 that left, the 2 portal guys and the graduation. We lost about roughly 37 points of production last year. The 3 big transfers we brought in scored about 45 points their last full year. Again, different levels. It's not
totally
the same, but there are points coming in to replace the points going out. The last point I want to make, and then Rajiv, I'll kick it to you if you have anything you want to talk about. I feel like as fans, we got to be quick, maybe a little quicker to move on in the portal era. Like we crush coaches for not adapting, not being quicker. You got to adjust. People are still holding on, I think, to Hepburn left, and Gus didn't work out. And yeah, that sucks. You're not going to – I still have my Gus Bus hoodie. I put that in the garage, so in 3 years when he enters the portal again and transfers back to Madison and leads us to the Final Four, I'm going to break it back out, baby. Like, that sucks. It stinks. But you got to kind of move on. Yeah, like as a fan, in my opinion, and I feel like fans are still so into that he was loyal to us and he left and it stinks. That's every program now. I mean, Illinois just lost a bunch of guys. That's every program now.
Mm-hmm. It's a whole different world, man. It's a whole different world. We talked about, like Tonje and his commitment to New Mexico, right? Was it New Mexico? Is that what it was?
New Mexico State, I forget.
Yeah, one of them, right? But like, that's just where we are. It's the total new age of NIL and college athletics and the whole 1 year thing. It's going to change. There has to be a point at which you have contracts, you have commitments, they have to be maintained and these kinds of things. So it will change. But for now, yeah, you're really looking at everything on a 1 year basis, and based on who you lose, you gotta fill in the gaps of what you have to create a roster, which is unfortunate. And I really was like, it stung me a lot when Chucky left. But then, of course, everyone turns their attention to guards. Like, what did you do wrong? And it's like, well, look, I mean, we don't have an unlimited supply of NIL money, and we don't know what that looks like. We don't know the back workings of it and how it all comes in and all this stuff. It's hard. And all he can do is work with what he's given and put a team on the floor that's going to be effective. And I hope he's done that. I think he has for the most part. But yeah, I mean, it's like, this is a whole new Wild West. And I think your point about you got to just kind of get past it, I think that's really fair, because it's you got to go year to year, right? You can't be too attached to any of these guys, because I mean, who knows? Free tag might leave next year too. I mean, we don't want that to happen, but it's like, that's just it's the world we live in now. And it's all about, like, since it happens to everyone, we can take advantage of that, because all those players that left us, there's 300 others that enter the portal that we can try to go get. So all we can do is just play that game and do it to the best of our ability and fill the needs that are required, which he's pretty much done.
Yeah, this is well said from Rajiv, as always. At Rajiv Badgers, go follow him. Go follow Justin as well down on the show. But definitely, I still need to get him on to talk basketball, but I think he's still in the basketball hiatus.
He's talking a little bit more about it, but yeah, he's still pretty mad.
Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there. I am Ryan Arians. He's Rajiv Jabra. As always, on Wisconsin, thank you so much for tuning in. Rajiv, any last words?
No. Listen, we are spring practice is almost over. We got a lot to talk about there. I'm just so ready for football. This was a basketball show. Yay, basketball. But man, there's so much to be excited about with this offense. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of time to talk about it over the summer.
Yes, sir. On Wisconsin, and we'll talk tomorrow.